this isn't what I want to be doing. I want to be making games.
Yeah, I want to be selling games.
I have a responsibility to participate, though, in this changing climate and to advocate for the change that we want to see. And this is one of the few ways we can do that. So,
welcome to another episode of the Manaverse podcast, live from Gamma. For the first time, actually. This is my first time being here.
Oh, wow.
And
welcome.
Yes, it's great. So I'm very excited to be here. I'm really excited to talk with you guys about a not so exciting topic, but something that's really important. Before we get into it, I think everybody knows Lynn.
Well, not everybody.
Everybody who watches this probably knows Lynn.
So I'm Lynn Potyen. I am the owner of the Game Board, and I've been in business for 19 plus years. We'll have our anniversary this year for 20 in October.
Nice.
So.
Oh, congrats.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And this is Price.
Yeah, I'm Price Johnson, Chief Operating Officer of Cephalofair Games. We publish games like Gloomhaven, Frosthaven, some of the biggest, more ambitious tabletop games in our sector. I've been doing this since 2017. Prior to that, spent about 10 years in banking and financial operations and marketing. Yeah.
So this is way more fun.
You know what?
Not until this year.
I love what we do. Yeah, and we're having the best time doing it. So, yeah.
All right.
And making great product.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're proud of what we do.
Yeah. So it's really good to be able to come to a Gamma, which is the game association, and it's the premier expo of our of all the tabletops. So it's like worldwide.
Yeah.
We get global.
Yeah.
We get global eyes here. We get people from overseas who come, and we all do business here at the table, which is really important.
This is by far about the most valuable show that I get to do every year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not just for our business relationships with retailers and distributor partners, but also this is like the premier expo for meeting and exploring manufacturing options and pushing innovation and really preparing for the next year, 2 years of our business strategy and release cycle.
Yeah.
This is where we line it all up. This is where we lock in those production projects. So really excited to be here. We're navigating a lot as an industry, both on the retail side and the publishing side and the manufacturing side. So we're all crossing notes and just making sure, we know where we're
virtually
going.
every tier of the industry is affected.
Every tier is here.
So what we're actually talking about, we're dancing around the subject a little bit, but the main subject of what we wanted to discuss was the tariff situation.
Yeah.
The current and the future and where things are going.
Yeah.
And the impacts that have been felt by everybody, apparently.
for the
That's
last
how it feels, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're coming up on exactly a 1 year anniversary of the instability that U.S. tariffs have caused, and so it's kind of surreal. It's been both the longest and shortest year, I think.
God, yes.
of my time in this industry.
Yeah.
And I think just to help paint a picture anecdotally, the vast majority of my peers that I'm talking to and crossing notes with, this has been a more difficult year than even 2020 was with the global pandemic.
Absolutely, I would agree from a retail standpoint, because we're such a small industry. We are connected with the manufacturing side, the publishing side, the distribution side, the retail side. We all work very closely with each other, and watching our friends and our coworkers struggle and have their businesses just ransacked and taken down, that's a hard thing to watch. Retail has a slightly better space because we can pivot to another game. They can't. Their game is their game, so they have to try and figure out, negotiate how to keep their company happy and safe and healthy, and how to keep their retail partners also safe and healthy and happy. And retail is pushing back and saying, we're more concerned about you right now. Like, this is very important that this tier of our industry stays strong, because we don't want to lose this industry without us fighting back or raising the word about what's going on. It's not just our industry; it's many industries across our nation that are. Everybody is paying the tariffs. So
Yeah, we're one example. We're one snapshot of so many other industries that I've talked with. I have friends that that work in baby products. I have friends that work in book publishing, toys, and it's impacting all of them in exactly the same ways.
Yeah.
And
our story is their story, and I'm so proud to be in this industry. It is one of the most collaborative industries I've had the pleasure of working in. We're here to service our customers, and we're a very low margin industry. We already sacrifice a lot to make sure, hey, this game that we're so passionate about, we want to get it in as many hands as possible. We want to make it as accessible as possible. And, that's always kind of passion and vision first. And so, we're in a really difficult place right now where we've already been operating on those, margins as an industry. We're all having to make shifts and pivots in different ways. And there's just a lot of inconsistency because everyone's going to have to take a different approach.
And every day is new news.
Yeah.
So we were talking earlier about how quickly the information is being funneled down to each of us, and that we have to not only try to navigate through this information, but we also have to disseminate. Is that the right word?
I think so.
Yeah, disseminate the information so that we can figure out what that means. So can you talk about that a little bit more? Because you are really one of the front runners on having to do that research and what it looks like.
Sure. I came into this industry to publish games. I didn't come to learn about,
New legislation.
import laws and how Supreme Court, operates and legislation and tariff policies and all of that. It's my responsibility to, though, right? And so this last year, has taken a very non-insignificant amount of time and distraction away from the core of what we do in order to navigate instability and changing policies and policies that are that have no precedent and don't have congressional approval, and we have to assume this will eventually get swatted down and changed, but for right now this administration is going to full court press until someone like the Supreme Court tells them this is unlawful. We've seen it take the International Court of U.S. Trade to tell this administration these are unlawful. We've seen the appellate court tell them these are unlawful. Now we see the Supreme Court saying these are unlawful. And, I think at this point they're going to drag their feet until they're forced to. But I'm happy to speak, to really what got us most involved with this was about a year ago. We were completing production of a brand new release, a brand new edition of our flagship title, the game responsible for building our entire company, Gloomhaven, a brand new second edition. We had just completed a $1.2 million production run of this game. We had several containers that were due to ship to the U.S. and international, and those containers were literally on trucks heading to port when tariffs were implemented. And we were seeing not just tariffs imposed by the executive office, but also threats that this was going to continue to increase. We had to pull those trucks back. We can't responsibly put that product on the water without knowing what tax we're going to pay when that product hits U.S. port. That product then sat in China for 3 months while we saw rates spike, I think, at least a half a dozen times over the course of a month or two.
Yeah, it felt like every other day.
Every other day was 30, 45, all the way up to 145% import tax. And I need to be absolutely clear. We've never paid $1 of tariffs to any country that we manufacture in, including China.
Yeah,
correct.
We pay our manufacturers. Many of them are owned even or facilitated by U.S. companies back here at home. But exist overseas. And so when the U.S. imports are imposed, U.S. tariffs are imposed on countries like China, that means our business, who is the importer of record, is paying whatever that tariff percentage is on every dollar that we spent on that product when it gets here. So during that course of time, we saw it spike as high as 145%.
And stressing that this is also, they're having to pay warehousing fees.
Absolutely.
On something that's just
ongoing costs
sitting there.
There's
a lot of ongoing
that
costs.
put us back an entire quarter. Because not only could we afford to bring it over at 145% or a 60% or 50%, tax rate on top of what we've already paid for the product, it doesn't make sense to pay 145% of our investment to land that product. That's over doubling our cost.
Yes.
And so it was an effective embargo. And during that time, we had to make several hard decisions. We had to implement company-wide furloughs, shifting people from full-time to part-time positions. We fortunately had to eliminate one position. And we had to, push back several product releases that we otherwise would have gone full force into. One of the hardest things about, these production runs is oftentimes these are pre-orders, which means we've already put in multiple years of development investment and strategic pricing into those products. And we've already communicated and disseminated that pricing to our retail partners, to our distribution partners. So they have a price that they're already expecting it. Our customers have handed us their money. And now suddenly this price is going up almost twice as much, at least in terms of our cost to produce. And so once the tariff pause was implemented, which was really just a reduction from that 145 down to 30%, we were told you have 90 days. We said, get it over here as fast as possible. We still then ended up paying a 30% tax to U.S. Customs and Border Protection when it hit the U.S. port. In addition to that, we also...
And stressing, that is 30% that you never collected from anybody. So it is literally coming out of a business function. We had to front that money. We had to adjust prices. We had to go back to some of those pre-orders and say, hey, this is really difficult to explain. We're going to do the best we can, but a new U.S. tax has been implemented. That didn't exist when we took your original order. In order to ship your product, we've run the numbers, and we're going to charge you as little as we have to, but we might need an extra $10 or $15 to account for this new tax. That being said, there are a number of new watchful price increases that we had to absorb and pay due to that tariff situation, such as port congestion fees, increased and spiking freight costs. When effectively no containers are coming into the West and East Coast ports anymore, and then you implement a 90-day pause, it's a giant surge, right? It's a giant logistical surge, and those freight companies are going to charge premiums.
Well, they only have so much capacity to process as
well, right?
Yeah.
It's supply and demand. Supply chain logistics are incredibly nuanced, and I respect that the average American doesn't have a finite understanding of that, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We all want to go to the store. We want to buy a product for the cheapest price we can at the best quality we can, right? And having to understand all the hidden costs behind that it's not something that I would expect most people to understand, but it's part of the reality we've been trying to share, at least with our customers.
Yeah, because the more we give this information out into the public, the more educated they are, and then the better we have a standing to help them understand. And it's one of the things we've really done really well in this industry as a game industry is getting the chance to have those conversations with our customers. And they say, why don't you have product on the shelf? Or why has this price gone up? And we have to just very clearly say, there's this thing called tariffs. Oh, I don't want to hear about it. You need to hear about it because this is seriously important to all of our businesses. No, I don't want to know about it. Okay, so it's okay if all my employees don't have a job now. Well, that's not going to happen. It is happening. It's happening right now. And so those are the conversations that had to get said. And companies like Prices, they look at Gloomhaven, that's a big company because I've heard of it.
We have 6 employees.
I
After
have
eliminating
7.
one of our full-time positions.
I have 7 employees. He has less employees than I do. You know what I mean? This is, you pay them better probably, but we won't talk about that.
We're super blessed for our team, and I really appreciate how much they've understood about this as well, right?
Yes.
We are not a big corporate entity. We are a small indie publisher. We are entrepreneurs that got our start on crowdfunding, right? Very similar to these creators that you might see on Shark Tank, right? Who get to pitch their vision to investors. We've done the same thing, but instead of going to one billionaire investor, we go to thousands of individual micro investors that trust us enough with our passion and our vision and our drive and our track record to hand over their money so we can go get this product developed. Most of our annual revenue goes right back into reprints, goes right back into investing in our staff, into providing full benefits, into providing retirement packages and things like that. We care deeply about that. So when tariffs got implemented, I'm so thankful for my staff because so many of them raised their hand and said, hey, if you need to, cut my hours back a little bit, like feel free to start with me. I've got a little bit of cushion, and that was something we didn't ask of them until the absolute last possible second, and only after we'd implemented, salary adjustments and partial furloughs on the executive level as well. So it's really been it's really brought us together as an industry and as individual companies. I like to look,
do that.
I like to look for the the upside of every situation, but
I think the games industry is really good at looking at the upside, but
but we've also been doing our due diligence of explaining to our customers, U.S. tariffs are a sales tax that get imposed on U.S. companies and have to be passed through to the end consumer.
Yes.
We are paying the tariffs, right?
Yes.
Despite what the president might say, that tariffs are being paid by China.
Yeah.
That may be true for a Chinese company that has presence here in the United States.
Correct, but it's a very
and I want to say, I do believe there are absolute strategic deployment and strategic uses and cases for tariffs. That is a political tool. That is an economic tool that should be utilized. But I agree.
But not with such broad strokes.
I
It's
agree
more of a
with
scalpel, not a sledgehammer.
Yeah.
I agree with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. They need to be precision-based tariffs. They can't just be a blanket-wide, agnostic of
Everything
what
from
product
this country
category it
is
is or material it is. And that's what we've seen over the last year is we don't care what it is. If it's coming in and it's not from the United States, we're going to tax you, the American business, more for it. Even if you don't have the domestic infrastructure to produce it here at home, even if the materials that the manufacturer here in the U.S. might have to source internationally.
So you're getting tariffed on that.
We don't care. We're going to tax the materials. We're going to tax the machinery,
and these tariffs aren't even going into a fund that helps us build our manufacturing and our industry here. They're gone. They're just
they're just collected as tax.
They are not putting this money into our infrastructure in the United States. That would be slightly more acceptable. Slightly, not a lot. Slightly. My business is in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, where we have Kohler Company, we have Johnsonville Sausage, we have Wigwam Socks. This is a big manufacturing county, and even if we're doing these American manufacturing companies here, they're still paying tariffs too because they, like you said, have to get some of their
raw materials from outside the States.
Yeah, we're out here at Gamma, which is for its life cycle been the premier place to meet with manufacturers, domestic and international. This is where every manufacturer sends their lead sales agents, their top executives, to come bid for projects and explain to us what they've been investing in, from equipment to machinery to labor to new technologies, new materials, and that includes domestic manufacturers. I just did dinner last night with one of our U.S. manufacturers because we do utilize U.S. manufacturers for products that are capable to be made here. They let me know last night they used us as a case study in a panel that they were giving a presentation on. They said, we can't do anything close to like a Gloomhaven by Cephalofair. That's not something we would ever touch with a 60-foot pole because the amount of skilled machinery, the skilled engineering labor that goes into that, all the materials, the raw goods, the tooling, we're decades behind places like China, and that's just not realistic. And if we did do that here, we'd have to import all the materials. We'd have to get different things done at about a half dozen locations across the U.S. and move all those products logistically into one place for assembly. Every time you have to touch a part of the product, it increases the cost. Meanwhile, we're working with the absolute most industry premier manufacturers overseas that have been investing in that for decades and mastering that. And they have clean facilities that we tour. We get to go see, the quality of working conditions. Those are all things that we vet heavily. And these are manufacturers that don't just do board games. We go over there and I see, they're doing projects for, the top brands you could possibly think of in the US.
And we, like you were saying, we vet them. You're vetting them specifically to have good services, but also good services for their workers. Like
absolutely,
there's like we've helped create an infrastructure overseas in many of these different countries because we've asked them to do that, and they're doing it to the standards we want, which is extremely high.
And they meet all the
They
health
do.
and safety testing
They're-
requirements that
Yeah.
some of the largest brands and IPs that you could possibly think of here require
Absolutely.
and demand, right?
Yeah.
And we have those same requirements for us, and we check all those boxes. So,
And we're
my
a global
point is
market too.
exactly.
Like we are a global market. Like this is the moment. If you've never heard the term and you didn't understand it, this is the term you really didn't understand. Is this is a global market. We have to have each other to be successful.
Yeah.
There's no way we
Yeah.
can be successful without that. Even if you gave us 10 years and all the tariffs to build just our little industry, it's not enough.
And there is an alternate way of proceeding with investing in domestic manufacturing, right?
Yes.
That's something that will take long-term
Yeah.
policy investment,
Yes.
financial investment, right?
Yes.
Financial incentives such as grants and federal loans and things like that in order to invest in
Yeah.
that here at home. But what we're seeing and what we're hearing from our manufacturing partners, both domestic and abroad, is if anything, this instability that this reckless tariff policy is causing,
Yeah.
this policy that's not being overseen by Congress and our elected representatives,
Right.
is just creating chaos and forcing them to look at building manufacturing in other countries that have lower tariff rates rather than bringing it here at home.
Yeah, so they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot by
Yeah.
being so chaotic, right? The uncertainty is actually almost as big of a problem as the actual tax itself, because you
Oh,
don't know what
absolutely.
to expect next week, and it could be anything, right? At least
Yeah.
it was this last
Yeah.
year.
It is incredibly difficult for me to look at the whole picture and not see this as anything other than intentional intentional chaos,
Chaos,
intentional instability.
Yes.
Because so much of this is avoidable if
Yeah.
our elected representatives were representing the businesses in their districts
Yes.
and learning about our products and how we make them and where we make them and why we make them. This would be a very easy conversation to have about, well, how do we build more U.S. Manufacturing? I want nothing more than to be able to make a
Yeah.
product a state or two over and put it on
Yeah.
the road and bring it to my warehouse. I don't enjoy, one of the most difficult parts of my job is building in that anywhere from 45 to 60 days that it takes from the time that product's done overseas to getting in my warehouse. It's
Yeah.
one of the biggest hurdles that I have to plan around in a normal tariff-free year,
Yeah.
Yeah.
let alone one where the rate changes every other month.
And then you get to hear from retailers who are like, when is it coming? When is it coming? When is it coming?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gave a
So-
presentation this week
Yeah.
to a room full of retailers, 30 or 40 different retailers, and they're asking us about some of our upcoming products. And one of the absolutely reasonable questions we get is, well, what's the pricing on that looking like? We're in a position right now where I can't responsibly tell them
Yes.
until I know that product is being loaded on a ship and it's locked in at whatever the current rate of the week is,
Yeah.
that week.
To be
Yeah.
fair, we weren't going to hold you to it either.
Oh no, you guys are absolutely understanding, and because you're
Yeah.
seeing this on the customer
Yeah,
side,
yeah.
and you're seeing this,
Yeah.
I'm sure, in incredibly volatile, inventory availability.
Weird,
right?
yeah, weird stuff that just is completely gone.
Yeah.
Pokemon, Magic, Neato, like
Yeah.
the little toys,
Yeah.
like Neato, like it's just evaporated, and people walk in. I want Neato. Where is it? It's made in China.
Yeah.
It's tariffs.
It's not here.
It's not here.
It's in China.
You know, my
We're ordering 8 weeks out to get our Neato right now.
Yeah.
8 weeks, and the toy industry. So sorry.
No, please.
The toy industry, they create their products like 2 to 3 years, like Price does. They place those orders 2 to 3 years out, which means last April when they got shut down, we're going to see this in 2027 and 2028.
Yeah, that's
This isn't-
that's an interesting point.
Yeah.
You've been dealing with it for a year, but
Yes.
the repercussions are going to keep happening.
It's a ripple effect.
They
It's
haven't
gonna be
all
coming.
been
Right.
felt yet.
Yeah.
Not only did we have product that was made and ready to ship, but we also had
Product that was stopped.
dozens of other SKUs in which we've already spent multiple years of financial investment,
Yeah.
putting deposits down, investing in big steel aluminum tooling and molds for plastic injection. So these companies that we're working with, these manufacturers that we trust, already have our deposits. They're already way down the field. And
Yeah.
overnight tariffs mean that I can't move that here. I've already made that investment.
Yeah.
And you didn't give me any heads up. You haven't given me any ability to move that over here. You haven't even done any exploration about what industries can be self-sufficient here at home, and which ones should we put on maybe a 5 to 10 year timeline and work with them.
That would make more sense.
I would
absolutely.
love that. And I've even reached out directly to my congressman and said, I want to be a champion for anyone that wants to support domestic manufacturing. I'd love to have a conversation about what that looks like. I've sat in their office for over an hour and educated them on the ins and outs and nuances, and they told me, to the best of their knowledge, this was to drive domestic manufacturing
Oh my God.
and to compete with international tariffs that we're paying other countries, despite me telling them that I've not given the Chinese government $1. Despite saying that, I already use the most premier U.S. manufacturing units, they refer me overseas to a number of other countries. So it's been a little maddening. And
I had a conversation with my state reps office support system people, right?
Yeah.
And I know full well he has been on the record supporting our president and encouraging tariffs and going against what our manufacturing world is looking like. I have watched him do this. I have seen his votes. And they had the audacity at the last meeting to come up to me in private, hand me their business card and say, our office is against that. And I said, really? And I looked down and I was like, that's funny, because everything you've ever voted for says no. Right. You are not on our side. Yeah. And he immediately stopped the conversation, walked out. And I was like, wow, you really think you're going to
pull a fast one on you?
The fast one on me. And it made me so angry. Yeah. Because it's like, did you think, like, I'm dumb? Like, I'm educated on this whole thing. Like, yeah.
And our elected congressman is finally starting to do the softest of pushbacks with the administration, but it's more of I just fear that we might lose our congressional oversight in the future if this trend were continue. But it's impossible to look at the last year and say, but you've already done it.
Yeah, you've
already handed over your authority by refusing to enforce your power as Congress, right? Yes. To uphold your checks and balances. And so we really have been operating in a taxation without representation situation.
Thing that is in my store that I have pre-ordered and that I am waiting on probably for, 6 months, is still going to be under all those tariffs. This is not going to, I'm not going to feel that. My customers aren't going to feel that. So
there's a big delay that happens in rolling out products, and most of what's in retail right now was already affected, or somewhat already in progress, right? Yeah. What we're now seeing, right, is the impacts going forward.
Yeah.
That's where it's really starting to catch up and hit us. To paint a picture, even though this product was ready to ship a year ago, in about the last 3 or 4 months of 2025 alone, we paid approximately $150,000 to U.S. Customs and Border Protection. That's money that they have the ability to directly withdraw from our operating account. It's very easily accounted for. I have the receipts of each of those withdrawals that they make. Mm-hmm. They make the assessment. They automatically withdraw it. We get our product. And so that's not even touching dozens of other SKUs that we have on pre-order that were set for release this year. So we're currently estimating, putting together projections for what that number is going to be. The current climate is that there is a 10% tariff still in play. Mm-hmm. After the Supreme Court ruling, they switched to another piece of prior legislation, I believe from the 70s, if I'm not...
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
And once again, we haven't had a chance to research this yet.
Yeah.
This just happened last
it was
Friday.
Last week, right?
Yeah, a week ago, and we were all preparing for this show.
We were driving here next.
So
exactly.
We have a lot of self-education we still need to do, but even that is confusing to navigate because, if you look at the administration's official communication channels, they notified us it would be 15%. But when we talk to our import agents and when we talk to our lawyers, everyone is telling us, well, the only paperwork that's been submitted is for 10%. So until the administration actually puts action behind their words, we have to assume, well, it's 10 for now, but it's probably going to go to 15.
Yeah,
and then in 150 days, from that change, mm-hmm. it's supposed to be only 150 days. It's limited to 15% max.
Okay.
But then it takes congressional approval to either extend that timeline or increase the rate. That's not a huge amount of, that doesn't give me a huge
No.
amount of confidence when we've already seen a year of tariff
Right.
policy enacted
Yeah.
without Congress's involvement.
And I wanna speak on last April, because they got rid of the minimus.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So we were able to import as a retailer, and I've imported. I have a couple of partners that I work with overseas. We've imported for years, and we pay the customs fees and
Yeah.
everything. So we're about to get tariffs, right? And then they announced that they're going to get rid of the minimus. We put through three $800, because it had to be less than $800.
Yeah.
$800 orders in succession immediately within 4 days, so that we could try to get them through before that happened. It meant that I had to certainly not max out a credit card, but like that meant that my credit card was super high in an area that was not expected. And the only goal that my team had for this was that we are going to bring in product that we know we're going to sell until Christmas.
Yeah.
That's it. After Christmas, we don't know what's going to happen. And right now, we are quickly churning through the last of it, and we were so looking forward to coming here, because we need to find new product. We need to find new partners.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
need to find things that are matching the numbers we can
Yeah.
put into our mathematical equations to make this work. And if it's not making our numbers, we have to change to different partners, because we are limited, right? But what does that do when we change partners? Now we're no longer loyal to our partners that we've always had. And now that's hard on them, because they were hoping and expecting us to be their partners. Now, that does not, I'm not
Yeah.
jumping off of Cephalofair. I love Cephalofair. In fact, I'm really excited about the new stuff coming.
Oh, thank
so,
you. Yeah.
very excited.
Yeah.
But we are trying to be hopeful in a world that there is little hope right now. And because of the way this is destroying, we've watched a number of our
We've seen a
overseas
number of
partners
publishers-
closing their warehouses,
Yeah.
closing their businesses. Our partners here in the U.S. who have jobs here, they live here in the U.S., this is their job, are now completely without.
Yeah, we're seeing publishers close their door, lay off their staffs. We've seen
Yeah.
it. We've seen it. A half dozen different publishers just in the last 6 months or so.
There are
forced
numerous.
into doing that, and there's more that are really riding that line and trying everything
Yeah.
they can.
And there are numerous people walking the floor right now with their resumes, because they're here
Yeah.
to try and get jobs.
Yeah,
in another
they
company.
they don't feel secure in their current
Yeah.
position, knowing
Yeah.
how volatile this is, because it really is clear from the business end how uncertain this really makes a business's operations.
Yeah.
I have peers that even following the Supreme Court ruling, even with the reduction from the 30% under the previous tariff policy to this new 10%, they still ended up paying 30% to customs because of the timing
Yes.
at ports.
Yes.
You can start clearing.
That
you can
Yes.
start
blows
clear-
my mind.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can
It's
start clearing your product with customs while it's still on the water, and oftentimes you're doing that so that you can move that product that much quicker once it's at the dock.
That would make
Because
sense.
every day it stays on that dock and in port, you're paying holding fees, and you're paying yard fees and congestion fees, and so it's in our best interest to clear that as soon as possible. So they said, oh, great, it's only going to be 10 rather than 30. Remind you, it was 0 a year ago. Then they get the bill and it's 30%. Now, the upside is, yes, they can apply to then have a refund granted because the policy had changed. But now, instead of doing their normal business operations, they're going to have to take significant time to go file
Right.
appeals and chase
Yeah.
those refunds.
That
and it's
should-
in
Everybody
Just-
loves regulation and red tape.
we all
right?
love
That's
it,
the
right?
best.
Yeah,
It takes so much time
for
out
an
of it.
administration that's all about deregulation.
Yeah.
We've never been more up to our eyeballs
Yeah.
in legal
Smaller
red tape.
government.
Yeah,
I think it's a really good point.
Yeah.
So there's a point here about what do the refunds mean? How does this apply? I remember I was seeing a conversation on Facebook amongst the store owners and the publishers about who gets the refund, right?
yeah.
Right.
Where does this make sense? Because you can't just give everybody the, because
Yeah,
only
but
certain
that's-
people paid, but versus
That's one of the
how do
conversations.
you compensate for
well,
this
that's one
mess?
of the conversations they talked about giving out a refund to every person.
Yeah, did
And-
you get your $2,000 tariff refund check?
Yeah, and
They don't send those to
I'm
Canada.
still waiting
right.
on mine.
They really
yeah,
should, though.
exactly.
That's true.
But
That's
here's the problem: like, as a retailer, I don't need my tariff money back. That does not mean I don't want it. I need it to go to my publishers. I need it to go to my manufacturers who footed that bill, who lost their people, who are struggling to stay afloat, because this is my bread and butter. He's making stuff for me. I'm his sales force. And I need him to succeed. Because without him succeeding, I have no business. And for 20 years, I've been loving on all these people. You know, I want these guys to be successful. I'm excited when these new products come out. And when I watch them struggling and leaving a really high stress job to do the thing that you absolutely love and want to put your passion into, and then watching this part of your world come crashing because you're just being dragged right back into that corporate thing that we're very lucky in this industry that we have people like you, and I'll say people like myself, who are getting the word out and spreading the word and talking on the ground. We're boots on the ground, trying to point out why this is happening. And thank you for letting us talk about this.
Yeah,
it's so important.
Yeah,
I'm glad I can help.
Yeah,
I was not expecting this conversation,
No,
but hopefully we could do something about it.
we have stories to share, and this is all, like, I want to be very clear. This is business, right?
Oh, yes.
These are business decisions. These are business experience that we have. And, you know, we all have our own
We're all
political
successful
beliefs,
businesses.
but these are all absolutely black and white business, you know, factors for us and challenges that we're facing. I know businesses of every political leaning.
Yeah.
We're all contending with the same difficulties right now.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's in lack of forethought, lack of planning, lack of collaboration,
Right.
you know, from our government with our businesses. And so, to answer your question regarding refunds, right? The absolute first step, most black and white thing that this administration can do is reverse the flow of those funds.
Yeah.
We have a record. I have a receipt for
Yeah.
every time U.S. Customs and Border Protection withdrew funds from our account. They have that same transactional receipt. That's who you need to reimburse first and foremost.
Yes.
Is the American small and medium sized enterprises. And you know, I'm not here to advocate for big business.
Nope.
I that's not my background. That's not what I do.
Right.
They have a greater ability to absorb and adjust and keep prices where they need to. And I won't go on that.
I'm sure
tangent.
they can also, you know, they have
Well,
influence of their own to
they
make
have
things happen if they want.
entire divisions of lobbyists and things like that. So I'm not here to do their work. I'll let them do their own work. But in terms of small and medium-sized enterprise, you know, we need that money back.
Yeah.
That $200,000 that we're trending towards having paid over the last year in tariffs, that's multiple salaries. That's multiple new products. That's reprints of new products. And not only is that money gone, but we're, you know, now up to 6 months behind on certain project rollouts.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've had to pivot to completely new product lines and pivot projects rather than focusing on these larger projects that are going to cost more to import. We're looking for every avenue to keep our company afloat. So that's the first step. Now, the American people, you know, they've also been realizing price increase as well.
Yeah.
And I absolutely respect that, and I want to recognize that. So the damages exceed the exact dollar amount that our companies have paid.
Yeah.
You know, our damages do, but so do the American people.
Yes.
So I'm of the opinion that yes, first step, refund those businesses. But I also believe that the American people at large, you know, we were promised the American people were promised $2,000 tariff refund checks, right?
Where are they?
You know, let's pivot to
I'm
damage.
sure they're in the mail.
Yeah. I still think there's some call for tariff refunds on an American, you know, citizen level, but
And I don't want to say I don't want that. It is
absolutely.
specifically that this is my passion, is that this is where it needs to go, because otherwise, and that means any industry, any people that are importing, they need to get their money back. And
in a best case situation where we get every dollar back that we get, that is not going into our personal bank accounts.
No.
That's not coming back as profit.
Yeah.
That's going towards a fraction of the damages that we've experienced.
Yeah.
And so that's just something I want to be transparent about with our customer base.
Yeah.
You know, I'm absolutely going to look for positive ways that we can support our customers going forward, especially knowing that they had to front this cost with us directly.
Absolutely.
So we could face these imports. I don't know what that looks like. You know, I'm not in a position, obviously, we have no indication of when or if refunds will happen.
Yeah.
We're going to continue the pressure, but in a best case where we get those funds back, we'll look for ways to offer, you know, discounts in the future to that demographic of our customers. We're going to look for ways to offer them something on top of what normally we would provide. We want to do that. But it's not realistic that we would be able to turn around every dollar of that tariff refund, to 100% of our customer base, especially when you consider that the pricing adjustments we had to disseminate through our distribution chains, through the entirety of the supply chain, the freighting costs, the port congestion fees, all of that.
That's why it's so complicated.
Our shipping went way up.
It
Our
is
shipping went way up.
nuanced, but
It's just,
but it is absolutely easy for this administration to determine how much they collected from American businesses and put that money back, without a question.
So what can people do to help the cause? Well, if you wanted to tell somebody who's listening to this, and they're probably retailers, most likely. That's my idea. So if you're talking to them, what can they do to help?
They need to talk to their congresspeople. And then there's a program that we're working with called We Pay the Tariffs. And they started back in last April. A group of people, they are lobbying for all of our small business industries, and they are making no money on this. They've asked us for nothing. I offered actually recently, I wrote to them and I was like, I feel like I missed something. I feel like I should pay. And they were like, no, we're doing this as long as we can to help fight for the whole situation, which is incredible.
This tariff case that just went, in front of the Supreme Court, this group, the We Pay the Tariffs organization, they helped us submit written, sworn testimony and affidavits that were attached to that case that went before the Supreme Court members. And we got to officially, on the record, sworn under oath, provide this story and the numbers of damages that we've been impacted with over the last year. We wouldn't have been able to do that without this group. They are advocating for us. They're working hand in hand, to stay abridged and disseminate that information to us every day that the goalposts shift and change with this policy. And so we're really happy to have advocates,
they're trying to help read through and give us bullet point information so that we can
notes, right?
Spark notes, so we can catch up really fast. And Dan Anthony, who is in charge of We Pay the Tariffs, has done an amazing job of keeping us all on task, educated. It's timely. We were in a call that last Friday, and while we were in the call,
it's literally changing in real time.
It was literally. They actually literally had to jump off. One of the members had to jump off the call to go read what was happening, so that she could come back and explain it to us at that moment. It was.
So if you're a small business, if you're a retailer, something I would just really emphasize is this is not a political thing that I think you need to be afraid of speaking about or against. This is our business. This is our industry. And this is, you can remove partisan politics from it. These are business decisions, and this is business impact. It's black and white. And so you need to be appealing to your local chamber of commerce, be appealing to your local elected representatives in the House and in the Senate. Your Congress people, you need to be having those conversations and sharing your story. Talk about how volatile inventory is. Talk with your distribution partners, get their insights. If you're buying directly from publishers or if you're buying directly from manufacturing companies, talk with them and hear their story as well.
And We Pay the Tariffs has put together a letter that we can all sign, and it is live on their website. So if you go to wepaythetariffs.com, I believe it. Please double check.
It'll be linked up for sure.
They have a letter that all you have to do is sign your name to it, your business name, and it's very important that we all be signing it right now, because that's how we're being seen. That's how we're being heard. Is by all of us banding together.
And consider talking to your local media as well. If you're having a hard time, if this is really impacting you, attend city council meetings, share your story. Talk to local media and press. Well, that's one of the things I've appreciated about We Pay the Tariffs is they've gotten us in touch with outlets in our area. They've had outlets reach out to them and say, hey, we're looking for small businesses in this particular city.
We've both been quoted numerous times and too many times.
This isn't what I want to be doing. I want to be making games.
I want to be selling games.
I have a responsibility to participate though in this changing climate and to advocate for the change that we want to see, and this is one of the few ways we can do that. So I think if you're looking to get involved or speak out, I think those are some steps you could take. right now and for the last year, we've been forced into a position where we have to plan for worst case scenario, which means that even if the data in front of me says 10% and they haven't submitted paperwork for 15, I have to assume 15.
Yeah.
And even if it's going to be 15 for the next several months, I have to assume that it could go back up to 30,
Yes.
with a congressional approval,
Yeah.
right? I can't bet on being optimistic in this environment. And, it's normally, as our chief operating officer, it's normally my job to come up with contingency plans for every strategy that we deploy. Over the course of the last year, I have had to have contingencies for my contingencies contingency.
Yeah.
We're having to come up with plans A through D right now because we know the most confident thing we can rely on is instability.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
And
which is not the environment you want to operate
it's
in.
not
No,
how you run a business.
absolutely not.
It's not how you invest in domestic, business. It's not how you, continue employing US citizens.
No.
Yeah,
We're a
this is
team
very
of
contrary.
6. We're a team of 6, but I have to emphasize we work with hundreds of independent entrepreneurs and freelance contractors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From artists, graphic designers, writers, editors, photographers, videographers, marketers. I could go on and on. We employ hundreds of people every year despite only being a team of 6. And we couldn't do what we do without all of those Americans entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And this is directly impacting them because if I have to delay a product because I don't know if we're going to be able to manufacture it in the next year or two, I'm not getting to employ them either. And I think a lot of that data is still not, in the process of percolating to the federal level, whatever, what limited reporting we are getting from the federal government.
But that sort of impact is really hard to see. And I think that's a big challenge.
100%.
Well, and
You
as a-
can't see the missing job, right? You
Right.
can see the jobs that are lost, but not the ones that never got created in the first
Yeah.
place.
Right.
And our team of 6, 7 people who are working at our retail establishment, we are bringing in specific lines, but there's things that we've had on back order for over a year now that are just disappearing that we've been expecting. When is that going to come? When is that coming? It's not coming. That company's now gone. Or companies that are calling us and telling us they're closing their warehouse, and we're scrambling to grab what we can out of their warehouse before it closes because we're just not going to have that, or we're not going to have enough stuff to put on our shelves. And our team is having to learn things from back catalogs.
Yeah.
The back catalogs, where you've had really great games over the years, but our back catalogs aren't always the things that we sell from.
Yeah.
And now we're leaning hard into our back catalogs because that didn't have tariffs.
And even under Section 122, I have at least 6 different products that I need to go reprint because we've not been in a place to reprint those in the fluctuating, tariff amounts over the last year. So I have 6 different product lines I need to go reprint in making significant investments in reprinting. Logistically, operationally, it will be impossible to get all of those manufactured on boats and into the U.S. by the time Section 122 expires. I am right now, today, making decisions and wagers on what an unknown tax situation is going to be 100 and something days from now, because I don't have any other information and there's no congressional oversight over what's happening.
Yeah, there's no confidence.
No,
Yeah.
there's zero confidence.
So
So that's about what I can speak to with 122. We're going to get home and spend some more time, educating ourselves about that and having conversations with our lawyers and our accountants and
emailing back and forth and trying to keep each other posted.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's been a long road, long tiring road.
Yeah.
I started this business because my son had a speech delay and a neurological writing disorder, and I wanted to sell games to help him. And it's grown and become this big thing that we can help people, and we can grow, and we can do brain health, and we can do socialization, and we can do all these wonderful things. So everything that's going on with this is not just in the business world affecting our mental health,
Yeah.
but it's in our community's mental health.
Yeah.
If the games industry disappears, we don't have anything to sell. You're not going to have toys. You're not going to have games.
The world will be
They're
a
gonna
lot grayer than it is now.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
nature of stepping into entrepreneurship over the last 9 years, helping build this company and, level up, right, in the gaming industry has given me, the flexibility at home to be more involved in my kids' lives.
Yes.
Both of them were either 1 year old or born over the course of me building, this company. And so there's not a field trip I don't miss, at my kids' public school. There's not a book fair that comes through that I don't get to volunteer at.
Yeah.
I get to spend time in the classroom. But this last year has put such a heavy
Strain.
weight and stress over, it's such a dark cloud that it is impacting my ability to volunteer on a local level. It is causing, that book fair, for example. I walked around our scholastic book fair. The majority of those books are manufactured in the same cities and regions that we produce.
Yeah.
And we saw inventory issues, right?
Yes.
We had a much smaller amount of books in our kids' school this year.
Which is a tragedy.
Look at the technology. Look at the Chromebooks that we use in our classrooms.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Look at the price of things
phones.
like memory and computer RAM.
My
We're
husband's-
depriving our students and our kids of that technology and those resources right now because those companies can't afford to bring in those products.
Yeah.
I can't
The
emphasize
price-
enough the trickle down effect that this instability has on every aspect of our life.
We carry a lot of stuffed animals, and our stuffed animal prices have gone from, I'd say, 22 to 25 on average to 37 to 45.
Yeah, your dolls, right?
Big jump.
Yeah.
Your dolls for Christmas.
My dolls for Christmas.
Yeah.
Children should all. Little girls only need one.
Yeah, we're here in Kentucky. I took my team out for
Little girls need briefcases.
we're here in the heart of bourbon, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we hear as we navigate the city is distilleries just seeing the damages in their exports, right?
Yes.
Because these countries that we're imposing these trade partners that we've had for decades and decades, that we have a mutual trading relationship with, we're imposing these blanket tariffs on them. They're having to retaliate. That's impacting industries like the bourbon industry, the alcohol industry.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing Doug Ford, who's the Premier of Ontario, dumping out a thing of Crown Royal, being like, "Oh, we don't want this in our store. Get this stuff out of here. All this U.S. booze that's not allowed here anymore." And what a weird situation.
Right. Look at the
to
price.
antagonize your closest ally.
And
anyways.
here's the thing: it's not the American people.
No,
We're
it's
not the problem.
No, the
Our
government
Canadian
is
friends
not-
are not the
they're
problem.
not the same.
Our China friends are not the problem. We have friends globally. This is not
We're a global
this is
industry.
not a people problem.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a government problem.
leadership
And
problem.
We're seeing it in our
It's-
groceries.
yeah.
We're seeing it in the cost of beef, right?
car prices, tires,
automobiles.
and highways. Your highways aren't going to get fixed as well because the stuff that goes into those are having.
If I'm not mistaken, and I don't want to speak on behalf of my local city, but I think we have a traffic light that we don't have a projection on when we're going to be able to replace it.
Oh,
it
wow.
It fell down in a recent storm because we're not getting those raw materials over in order to manufacture the infrastructure that our roads rely on, right? So that's a good point.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is literally everything.
The trickle down effect is everything.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm most hungry for is just some return to sanity and intentional planning and responsible legislation that we can look at and say, great, this is the 10-year roadmap. This is the 5-year roadmap. This is what I can plan for and build into my strategy.
Yeah.
I can't do it once the ship has already sailed.
Yeah.
Or if he just decides to change his mind next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
This is not a joyous. This is not a joyous topic, but thanks for
normally I
letting
try
us
to
be-
end on a hopeful
No,
note and be like, things are going to be great.
you know what?
You
It
can
is
edit
hopeful.
still, so
It is a hopeful note. You know what? This is hopeful.
I think that is a
we
good
can
point.
we can go to We Pay the Tariffs. We can talk to our Congress people. We can get loud and we can discuss this on boots on the ground, organically. Get the word out there. Work together. That's how we're going to be hopeful.
Yeah.
Because we've already done something with We Pay the Tariffs that Price and I never thought last April, one, that we were going to have to, or two, that we would be able to.
Yeah.
Like our industry didn't think they had any chance to be heard.
I've gone out with the trade association with Gamma Expo. We've flown into DC.
Yeah.
We have spent a week, navigating congressional hallways and meeting with, elected representatives, even if it's just legislative aides, whoever's willing to speak with us, we've been trying to share our story and advocate for every arm of our industry.
I couldn't go. I was very upset.
I
never wanted to go.
No.
But yeah, this is important to me, and I couldn't.
Yeah, I never would have expected having to do that entering the board game space, right?
Yeah.
It's my privilege to be able to do so,
Yes,
and I'm
absolutely.
so proud to
Yes,
represent every
yes.
arm of this industry. But I think the most important note that I would leave you with is we've been paying the tariffs. We've paid the tariffs. We're continuing to pay the tariffs, and we need the refunds.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, and there are things that can be done.
Without
Progress
question.
has been made. Things are moving in at least hopefully in a better direction.
Yeah,
But there's still work to be done.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
And there's still opportunity for everybody who's listening or watching to actually do something about it.
Absolutely.
And
Don't
they
feel
need to-
powerless, I think, is a
Yeah.
good
We-
final note.
This
They
is-
absolutely need to do something. Yeah.
The American people have the power, and we need to use our voices.
Yeah.
We need to use our stories. We need to share those stories. And we can be the change that we need to see, and we're already seeing it.
Yeah.
We need it to continue, and we need the federal government
And we
to,
need
to refund small and medium-sized
Yeah.
enterprise.
and we need everybody out there to back us up so that
Yeah.
we can continue to do this.
Yeah, find
Continue
ways
to make the world
Yeah,
better.
because it
Fu-
shouldn't
Those
just
are
be, I mean, right now it's just us, but like Anne-Marie DeWitt from Fireside Games has
Absolutely.
been one of our big speakers. She wanted to be here today. She couldn't because she has to be over in the booth, right?
Yep.
Like, because we're here doing a trade show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
and walking the halls of Congress as well. We saw big business out there advocating for exactly
Yes.
the same thing. I'm not
Yeah.
going to put anyone on blast, but some of the largest retailers you can imagine were out there, emphasizing the damage that this causes as well. So
Yes.
we know
not
that
alone.
we as small and medium-sized business aren't the only ones impacted,
And we know they also know that they're being impacted. So we have to,
Yeah, we need to pull together. We need to keep up the pressure. But yeah, we've paid the tariffs. We need to see the refunds, and that needs to be a timely process.
Yeah.
That can't be something that requires us to file disputes or
Yeah.
appeals with.
Yeah.
They have the data.
Yes.
They're fully capable of putting that money right back where it came from. There's no additional work
That needs to be-
happen from us.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that to just put the work on someone else. We've
No.
been doing the work for the last year.
Yeah.
They took it easily. They can refund it easily. It's nuanced how it impacts an economy. It is not nuanced or complex how that refund process happens.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to require small businesses to spend another 6 months chasing that money, or having to even worse, file lawsuits
Yeah.
or small,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
class action lawsuits towards the administration, I absolutely wouldn't put it past them to make that a requirement, make it as cumbersome as possible. That is not needed
yeah.
in order to refund the tariffs.
Well, I think that is a good place to wrap up the conversation. I feel like I'm being needed. But yeah,
Awesome.
thanks
Thank
for sitting down with me. It was fun. Not the,
It was
not
fun.
the
It was
choice,
fun.
but I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
thank you for letting us
And
soap
hopefully this
off.
helps and we can
yeah.
get some motion going.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm really excited. Every interviewer, every media person that I've spoken with, like at the very end, like genuinely thank you.
Yeah.
And like I'm close to tears every time we have these conversations.
Yeah.
Because like it is such a meaningful thing, getting coverage every opportunity we can. It is one of the few places that we have the ability to make change.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I really just personally, to me, to you, off camera, thank you for meeting with Dan and taking the time to have this conversation a second time with him. And then all the time I know you're going to have to spend editing it together.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
Hugely
It'll be fun.
appreciate it.
And I
Thank
really
you.
hope that Dan's able to take that and disseminate that, not just to our industry, but like
Every industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
all the industries that their advocacy team is representing. I
Yeah.
think it's going to be like
huge.
Like I can't underemphasize the power that has. So genuinely, thank you again.
No problem. Thanks.
I am glad.